We are recording episode 9 of Everybuddies podcast.
We did.
Episode 7 twice, and we are now broadcasting our pirate code and hacking into the Matrix. Everybody's podcast coming straight at you from Burnsville, Minnesota.
Protect your neighbors. Fuck Nazis.
It's not controversial to say fuck Nazis. Wherever you are on the political spectrum, you can take that however you want. Have you ever heard of Sisyphus?
Yes.
What do you know about Sisyphus?
He's a Titan, correct?
No.
Is he not half God?
As far as I know, no. But if you want to open up that, you've got it right there.
Yeah. Sisyphus was punished by the gods. He has to push a rock up a mountain, and before it reaches the top, it rolls back down on him.
That's basically it.
We must imagine Sisyphus as happy.
We can get to that. Why should we imagine Sisyphus is happy?
Because he's got to do it either way.
That's fair. That's a fair assessment. So on the upper left there, that piece of pottery, that is Zeus and the nymph. I can't remember her name. She was a river nymph, and Zeus kidnapped her and took her to an island. Her father went looking for her. Now, Sisyphus, he was actually the king who founded the city-state of Corinth. He was neither god nor half god. And he founded the city of Corinth. But what he did, this nymph, and I think her name was Ionis, he told her father where to find her. Her dad was out looking for her. He told her father where to find her.
Okay.
So Zeus commanded Tartarus. That's who I've got on the lower left there. There were a couple different names for the god of the underworld, Tartarus and Hades. And what Zeus told Tartarus to do was go capture Sisyphus and bind him in the underworld. Basically kill him, drag him down to hell. Tartarus did that. But since Sisyphus knew he was going to die, he told his wife, "Don't bury me. Have my body taken out in the marketplace for everybody to see." He told her, "This is a test of your obedience." So she did that. And what Sisyphus did was he convinced Persephone that his wife had so deeply disrespected him that she should let him go back, basically tell his wife off, and then he'd come back. "Don't worry, you let me go, I'll come back." He didn't come back. He basically prevented other people from being killed. I believe he bound up Hades, or he bound up Tartarus, so that no one could die. And that really bothered Ares. On the upper right there, that's a relief from the Parthenon. It depicts Ares, Persephone, Hermes. I can't remember who the fourth one is. Ares, the god of war, got pissed off because what's the point of having me around if nobody can die? He complained to Zeus, and Zeus sent Sisyphus back to the underworld. And like you said, he was made to roll the boulder up the hill. All day long, he rolls the boulder up the hill. Then sun sets and the boulder rolls back down, and he has to walk back down all night and get back to the boulder. And on the lower right, that piece of pottery depicts having to watch him do it, having to make him keep rolling the boulder up the mountain. So a Sisyphean task is one where it can never be accomplished. Keep on chipping at that block, but your sculpture will never be finished. That repeated kind of punishment also shows up in the myth of the Titan who gave men fire, Prometheus, the myth of Prometheus, where Prometheus basically saw all of humanity down on the earth just struggling and suffering, and he said, you know what, I'll give them fire. Zeus didn't want him to have fire, and Prometheus was actually a Titan. He went and gave people fire, and as punishment, he was tied up on a cliff. Every day, an eagle comes down and eats his liver, and then he regrows it overnight.
Okay.
And then the eagle comes again and eats his liver. So it's this repeated cycle, right? That myth or that story that someone gave man some kind of tool or some kind of knowledge they shouldn't have, and then gets eternally punished for it. That's actually not uncommon. It's not too different from the serpent tempting Eve in the Garden of Eden to eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And then the serpent has to be made to suffer forever because he was not supposed to give them that. When you talk about Sisyphus being happy, that's at the end of an essay called The Myth of Sisyphus. The Myth of Sisyphus by Albert Camus.
Okay.
And Camus was writing during the time when the French were under Nazi occupation. You have to look at his point of view from this very dark angle that he was living in. You have to say he was living in a society where it wasn't really possible to live free, and there really was no progress that could be made because any positive thing that the French produced, the Nazis just stole. They were just reaming out that whole society. When you talk about the Nazis' whole ideology, the anti-Semitism, basically they were robbing the Jews. And then they went on to rob the Poles and rob the Gypsies. And yet they were killing them. But Hermann Goring, Adolf Hitler, Himmler with his SS, they became very wealthy, basically off of stealing money and riches. Camus was writing at this time where they were just under occupation and brutalization. But basically what Camus said is, you get up, you go to work. You go home, you go back to bed. You get up, you go to work. You go home, you go back to bed. You just keep repeating this same task. So it's Sisyphean and it's absurd because you look to the universe and say, what purpose is there in this? How does this make anything better? And there's no reply, no response. The universe can't tell you. The society around you can't tell you. So you're forced to try to find meaning within it, right? You can't look to the state and you can't look to religion. So what can you look to? A lot of people look to their family. My family is doing well, so that gives me some purpose here. But Camus is basically saying, you create your family. So you're creating your own purpose. What he says is, during that time when Sisyphus is walking down the mountain, that's when he's truly free. He isn't pushing the boulder. He doesn't have anything he has to do except think, except be free in his own mind, to find comfort in the absurdity of it all. To me, it sounds almost like Stoicism.
Okay.
To say what matters. So if you were being Stoic, you'd say, the thing that matters most is my own virtue, my own character. And to be happy in what you're doing, because it's a reflection of your character. So my question to you is, do you feel like there's purpose in the repetitive nature of life?
That's an interesting question, but it's similar to asking why ever have more than one cigarette? Why ever eat a steak once? Why not just eat a steak once? Every time is a little bit different. I'm getting that from, actually, that's something that Jane said to Jesse in Breaking Bad.
Okay.
So that's where,
Oh, when she was talking about drug use?
no, they were talking about, I forgot her name, but this artist had drawn a door like 20 times, her front door 20 times. Jesse was like, why keep painting the same door over and over?
Okay.
And then Jane's response to that was, should we only have one cigarette? Should we only fuck once? No, because every time it's different.
Okay. All right. So the fact that every day is a little bit different from the one before.
Gives it some level of purpose. Also, we force ourselves to work. The biggest issue, right? The reason why you will think that none of it's worth anything or that it's meaningless is because the reason you work, right? The reason why we have these specialized jobs is so that you actually have to do less. But we're not doing less. We're doing it more. We're working way more. You can find more purpose in life. You will have more space for the things you want to do if you do this specialized job, but that's not usually true, at least not in American society, and surely not in Nazi occupied French society. So you and I like to hike. Most people like to go on trips. Most people like to meet new people. That's what that specialized job is supposed to give you.
The
If,
freedom to do that.
when you are nomadic and just taking care of yourself and your family, you actually don't need to work that much. You don't need to produce that much. If you're just hunting and collecting berries and shit like that.
So I read that the average hunter-gatherer works less than 30 hours a week. As
Right.
far as collecting food and taking care of their shelter and clothing, it's actually less than 30 hours a week of work.
Yeah.
And it's social work. They are socializing as they work.
And that's a huge problem with our society, is that we are not really getting any ROI on the amount of work that we do.
Is that also because we're not sharing space? We have this whole house, and our neighbors have their whole house.
There are 800 billionaires in the US, and between them and the rest of that top 1%, they own more collectively than, I believe, 50% than the bottom 50%. That's completely inequitable, and there's no way they could ever make that money themselves. You and I don't get much ROI on the work that we do.
So much of it is going to,
Profits and expansion,
oh, okay.
but it's not ending up where you and I actually see any return on investment.
Okay. I hear what you're saying.
My taxes should not be going to bailing out malicious acting corporations.
Yeah.
I don't want to give them that money because I already gave them the money and I gave them the work.
Yes.
I would like, if I'm going to work so damn much, to have my own healthcare paid for without fucking having to rebuy it
And having to fight your insurance company.
when you get sick.
You want to guarantee that when I needed coverage, my insurance company just took care of it. They didn't fight me at all. So when you say that basically your money is going to a lot of profits, and not only that, but you are being taxed to provide a safety net for those profit margins. A lot of what the Federal Reserve does is try to keep the financial system stable. They do that by shifting interest rates. They also do QE. They will also extend lines of credit to banks that are in trouble, things like that. But basically, they push cash into the banking system. The first economist to actually say we should just have a universal basic income was Milton Friedman. He was a very conservative economist, a conservative libertarian. And basically what he said is the government has to push cash into the economy. You have to keep pushing cash in, or else you're going to wind up having loans that go bad. Then the whole financial system will eventually collapse. When loans go bad, those are bad assets. They have to pull in more cash. You get cascading defaults. To avoid that, you have to keep adding cash. So you have to have some price inflation and wage inflation in the economy. And what he said is really the equitable way to do that is just say, here's what the inflation rate is, here's what the unemployment rate is, right? And when inflation is too high, you take this amount of money that you give everybody every month. And basically what he said was give everybody the same amount of money. If inflation gets too high, you just start reducing that amount of money. When inflation falls below your target, you just start increasing that amount of money. So it would basically be like a universal income, right? I don't know if you'd call it universal basic income because you're not guaranteeing people enough to survive. But that would be, in my opinion, what I would like to see is the Federal Reserve do something more like that. Instead of creating cash and pushing it into the banking system, create cash and just send it to consumers to keep the inflation rate at target. But if inflation gets a little high, You just cut back that. So everybody can have a Federal Reserve debit card. And then you have the added benefit of you don't have to have the government surveilling people to see how much money they make and what their healthcare costs are. The government just pushes the same amount to everyone. What do you think?
That would be a correction to the system as it exists now, at the point where I think all of it just needs to be redone.
Elon Musk said 20 years from now, money won't matter because robots and AI are going to make everything so productive and do so much work that you're just going to be able to have everything you want without money.
Okay.
And
I'm sure he's building that future.
yes, and basically it'll be Tesla robots, AI. And in order to make that happen, all you have to do is give them $1 trillion right now. It's not a scam.
Because AI to this point has been so capable.
It's capable of some things.
Yeah.
It edits our podcasts.
Which shakes the foundation of our society, that AI is capable of editing our podcast.
AI is super useful for some things, right? When companies saying, oh, we're implementing AI, we're cutting back hiring. We haven't hired in a year or 2 years because we're using AI. They'll say, oh, the workforce here has reduced by 3,000 or 500 because we're using AI instead. After COVID, when things reopened, you had these huge growth expectations, right? Like growth just took off. And companies hired like crazy, like anybody they could get their hands on, right? Because during COVID and immediately after, you had the Great Resignation, where anybody who could afford to quit working basically said, you know what, this is crazy. I know a fair number of men over 50 who had friends or family members who died of COVID. They said, why should I work another 5 years? I'm not going to make $10 million in the next 5 years. Well, why not just retire as soon as I can? It caused a lot of people to reevaluate the value of their life and the value of their time. Right after COVID, you had this huge hiring spree, but then inflation got too high, interest rates went up, government spending went down, and growth slowed. So all these employees were no longer needed. Companies just stopped hiring and allowed attrition into the workforce. If a company says growth expectations have gone down, so we don't need as many people, then they look like, oh, we're losing money. And investors are like, oh, no, forget it, right? Then their stock price goes down. But if they say, oh, we're investing in AI, so we don't need as many employees, then you look like you're innovative and you're cutting edge.
Yeah.
People I've talked to in these companies are saying AI is not getting implemented at that high of a level. And like a lot of the people there how do I put this, where the companies say, oh, we don't need to hire to replace them. Like they're winding up hiring to replace them. It's delayed by a few months. So I think there's a lot of hype there and a lot of, we'll just say there's a lot of shining the turd. You know what I mean? Anyway, that was a long discussion from the myth of Sisyphus.
The biggest point I wanted to make is that we are taxed the most we have ever been.
We don't get a whole lot for it. We aren't getting more than we got before.
Return on investment would mean not your money going to pad these corporations, that when they fail, it's usually not a bad thing because they've been problematic. That said, rather than the money going there, I'd like it to go towards feeding everyone. Because I have my health right now, you have your health right now, right? We're both able to work. We could get T-boned by someone running a stop sign today. We were both in the same car today. If both of us went down, who would feed us?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we'd be in deep trouble. There isn't a very good safety net for the amount of taxes we pay. If you take what you pay in taxes plus health insurance and all that, you actually pay a higher percentage of your income in the U.S.
Towards healthcare, yeah. For worse healthcare.
For healthcare that has some of the worst outcomes, like in the world, in the developed world. We pay more in taxes plus health insurance than they pay in just healthcare taxes. So I agree with you. We should get a better return for what we spend.
I would rather the safety net be for the common person than for these mega corporations.
Completely agree. It's ridiculous. If the government has to bail out your company because it's too big to fail, the shareholders should lose everything. But that's not what happens. The government bails the company out, and the shareholders don't lose any value. If the government bailed out a company and said, we had to bail it out, now we're going to chop it up and sell off the pieces to reimburse the government, to reimburse the taxpayers. But what they do is they give the company a lifeline, and the shareholders still get paid dividends. It's crazy.
And it never trickles down.
It hasn't yet. It's only been 45 years since we had the beginning of trickle-down economics. So
bound to happen anytime.
Any minute now. Yeah. You want to look at some comments?
Yeah.
I think we have some regular commenters now. Ian Wilson has talked to us before. Ian Wilson, 4262. This is where I was talking about solar panels and how there isn't really the infrastructure to recycle them. At least not in the U.S.
They can be a toxic waste nightmare.
In the U.S., we don't have the infrastructure. Nationwide, we don't have an infrastructure for recycling solar panels. But Ian Wilson, 4262, says up to 99% of a solar panel can be recycled. You can get your solar panels recycled for free under UK law. Solar panel recycling is getting even more eco-friendly.
That's awesome news.
I totally believe that. The components are very recyclable. The components are very recoverable. In the US, unfortunately, we don't have that infrastructure.
Yeah. Kudos to our neighbors.
Good job, folks across the pond.
Now they just need to build that infrastructure for lithium batteries.
I've seen a recycling process for lithium batteries. They basically throw the whole thing in a vat and it would get chopped up
into a slurry.
All the metal pieces and everything would go to the bottom, and the lithium would be caught in the solution, in the acid bath. And then they'd just draw off the solution.
Okay.
And then all the plastic and metal and everything would be at the bottom.
Cool.
And they'd send all that off to its own recycling.
Yeah. The only reason I mentioned the lithium battery recycling is they're in the UK, the EV car problem. There are tons of EVs that are just abandoned on the side of the road because the lithium batteries become unusable.
Really? What's causing them to become unusable?
Just low quality lithium ion batteries that are made by cheap Chinese EVs. And the way the UK has it set up right now, at least my understanding of it, is if you want to run a mid-2000s vehicle, they're going to charge you an old car tax. It's a higher road tax, higher insurance premiums. And really the government is just trying to convince you to move on to an EV. Then having an EV with a lease and insurance and everything is about 200 euros a month. That's not counting how much you use it, right? Oh wait, there's no gas. So not counting charge fees. And that's if you don't just charge it at your house. Because all of their outlets are 240.
Okay.
They're trying to motivate people moving into EVs. And these cheap EVs they're cheap, but they're problematic because nobody can recycle them.
Oh, I see. Okay. So the vehicle itself is not recoverable. So there's no way to dispose of the car when it no longer works.
And
so people leave it.
Some of these things have lifespans that have been as low as 3 years.
Oh, that's terrible. That's a disgrace. Hopefully that improves. I understand now why there's a lot of people in the UK who have animosity toward electric vehicles.
Yeah, there's a lot to be said about our government, especially right now. But UK government is screwing the people on that.
On the EVs.
And it's because people are being bought by these companies when really it doesn't make sense. I think what would make sense is pushing hybrids
Okay.
because Toyota Priuses, I still see O5s out here.
Yeah, that's true.
And yeah, the lithium battery by now has had to have been replaced.
Multiple times.
But those kits are getting cheaper and improving.
Okay.
You know what I mean? The worst case scenario, that car holistically can just run on gas, right?
Mm.
Which creates a safety net for the end consumer. The car might be operating in limp mode, but they have a car that works.
Because you still got to get to work.
The car isn't dumped. You recycle a lithium battery pack. At a minimum, if you take it to a recycling plant, assuming they're following EPA laws, is not going to end up in your fucking water.
Yeah.
Even if the only thing they do is incinerate it.
Woof. Yeah.
I don't know if they just incinerate it, but they shouldn't. They should be
Right.
recycling it. But if they incinerate it, that's better than letting it get into the
You
groundwater.
would still have lithium oxide. It wouldn't become airborne. So you'd just be putting the lithium in another chemical compound. I'm with you. To have a bunch of vehicles on the side of the road because they're not recoverable doesn't make any sense. And
Yeah.
to push people into vehicles that are only going to last 3 years, people got to live. People got to work.
But all in, $200 a month. They are 200 euros, which would what be 250 here,
Yeah, I think
maybe 300.
about that. Yeah, about 250. So to own and operate the whole vehicle is 200 a month, but it might only last 3 years.
You don't own it; it's leasing, which protects the consumer.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, can't you just take it back to the company?
You lease a new one, and then that one gets thrown away, and then you lease a new one, and then that one
Right,
gets
right.
thrown away.
Yeah. No, I'd do that. If I could do that, yeah, totally would do that.
Right. That would make
Mm.
you part of the problem, but the thing is, I think most of these systemic issues, it's not on the end consumer to make a moral choice. You know what I mean?
Okay, sure.
An animal is going to protect itself.
So the moral thing then,
Is to not build a system like that. And if you have the means, keep your car that's not going to end up on the side of the road in 3 years. But if you don't have the means, I'm not going to judge you for choosing that economical choice. So that's just where I'm at with it. It is really on the system. Because I doubt many of the people supporting this EV system either A, understand, or B, support it.
okay. On that note,
On to the next.
yeah.
The Matrix Red Pill. Truth versus Happy Fantasy. Malal6512 says, is it better to know the truth no matter how brutal it is, or better to live a happy lie? It's up to you to decide. Which was kind of the point we were getting at in that portion. I kind of stand at the point where it's better to know the truth because you can always fix the truth.
I don't know. Sometimes you can. Sometimes you just got to live with it.
You can fix the truth.
Okay. There's a saying, people who hand out the brutal truth enjoy the brutality as much as the truth.
I'm not talking about being a fucking dick.
Okay.
If you're a burn victim and your face has been disfigured by that, I'm not going to present you the brutal truth every time I see you.
Okay, I understand what you're saying. For me personally, given the position I'm in life, I prefer the brutal truth to the comforting lie.
Okay.
Because I can't do anything with the lie. The brutal truth, yeah, I'd rather somebody say it nicely or in a way that doesn't make me defensive, where I don't have to become defensive in the moment. But I would also rather have the data. I'd rather have the true information than have myself put at risk by running on falsehoods.
Yeah. Anyway, that's what's said to be said on that one. Evolution of emotions. Why positive feelings.
Basically, what's the evolutionary value of positive emotions? And you said if you're sad too often, it's actually unhealthy for you. And Sage1412, who I swear has commented before, said, I like that if you're sad too often.
Thank you. Dude, our comments have been much more positive this time around.
Yeah, no kidding. Social media addictions, the 90s versus today's world. So that one I was talking about the Merovingian speech in The Matrix 4, where he comes back as a homeless person and basically says, yeah, back in the 90s we had elegance and all that, but now all we've got is social media. Like, people don't even meet face to face. It's all through screens. Mega Capo 12 says, Jesus, The Matrix was about the filmmaker's transition. Everyone just making shit up.
I didn't get that sense from the movie.
I know the Wachowskis both transitioned, but I didn't get the impression that the entire series was about transitioning.
They said it's all a transgender allegory.
Really? So the directors of The Matrix said the whole series is a transgender allegory?
Lily Wachowski says the Matrix films are about being transgender. The trilogy's co-director says that was the original intention, but the world wasn't quite ready, says Lily, who came out as trans along with her sister Lana after the films came out. Fans have speculated about potential meanings behind the iconic films, and Lily confirmed the theory to Netflix. I'm glad that it has gotten out. The Matrix first screens in 1999 when Lily says the corporate world wasn't ready for an allegory about transgender people.
The last one, Agent Smith. It's where you were saying Agent Smith is your favorite character.
And
Elon Danks, yeah.
Elon Danks, 3889, riveting content wins. I appreciate it, man.
We're doing well in the UK, man. I'll take it. All the love from us to the land across the pond.
Part of the reason we might not be getting the hate comments we're used to is we're not being shown to hateful people here in the US.
Yeah.
All of these companies that have been supporting this high shit, they've been trying to not show Americans all the speaking out against it. So by putting it in our content, we may be getting silenced.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But that said,
I can tell you our shorts and everything are getting plenty of exposure. May not be as much in the US.
it may just be an alert to them also that this ain't their podcast.
I couldn't have said it better. So you saw for the first time the other day.
Yeah, Pulp
last night?
Fiction.
Pulp Fiction. Yeah. So I want to get your opinion, but I thought we'll just look at a few scenes.
Okay.
So this scene is where Vincent Vega takes Mrs. Wallace, Jackrabbit Slims. They have the twist contest, and the two of them, they rock it and win the trophy. So what are your thoughts on Vincent Vega and Mrs. Wallace?
Vincent was put in a pretty impossible situation there. I described it to you last night that Marcellus, as far as Vincent knows to this point, Marcellus is a merciless person. Vincent believes that he has thrown someone off of a 4-story building for massaging his wife's feet. And then Marcellus sets up this date for his wife and Vincent. And then the entire time, his wife is essentially provocating him to do more and more intimate shit with her. And so I really felt for Vincent in that moment because he couldn't tell her to fuck off. He couldn't leave himself. But as far as Vincent goes as a man, he was overall a pretty brutal person.
So Vincent Vega is he just strikes me as just not very intelligent.
Yeah.
He's ruled by his impulses. He's the only one who's shooting up heroin, right? He's always saying, oh, I got to take a piss. Oh, I got to take a shit. The way he dies, Butch.
Yeah, he left his gun, right? You're supposed to take your gun with you for that exact reason.
Right. Yeah, he leaves his gun in the kitchen for sure. And then when he comes out of the bathroom.
If you were wondering, if you have a condition 1 through 4 weapon, which is just a gun with a loaded magazine, it stays on.
That makes sense. just for safety. An interesting thing where Vincent keeps saying that he just got back from Amsterdam. Quentin Tarantino, his movie that did well before Pulp Fiction was Reservoir Dogs. And he made enough money from Reservoir Dogs to be able to take some time off from working at a video store.
Okay.
He went to Amsterdam, and that's where he wrote Pulp Fiction.
Oh, okay. That's pretty funny.
That's why it talks so much about the differences between Europe and America.
Yeah, he wanted to throw some fun facts that he learned out there.
Yeah.
The Big Mac.
Yes. And the Royale with cheese.
Because of the metric system. Oh, yeah, the captain.
Yeah. That's Christopher Walken. That's the actor. I love that actor.
This is when he's talking to Butch as a kid.
Yeah.
And he basically hands him this watch, this cursed ass watch.
Tell me, because I had never picked up that the watch was cursed.
He basically describes to Butch as a child, your great grandfather died while he was wearing it. Your grandfather died while he was wearing it. Your father died with it up his butt, and now it's come to you.
You were the one who pointed out to me that watch sounds like a death sentence.
And then he nearly dies for that watch. He risked his life, and then once he was left and he had it on his wrist, Marcellus nearly killed him. The only thing that saved him was he stopped Marcellus from continuously being raped.
We'll get to that. But you ready to go to the next one?
Yeah. This scene where what's Samuel L. Jackson's character's name?
Jules.
Jules?
Yeah.
Yeah, where Jules is.
And I believe the girl is Roxy. And I can't remember the other guy's name.
What did Jules call him?
Ringo. Yeah.
That's an interesting scene.
It's the final scene of the movie.
And they break it up from when it actually happens. Because he gets shown the first half of that scene at the beginning of the movie, and then the second half at the end. And at the end, Vincent is already dead.
The whole thing, it's non-linear. The segments are not in chronological order. Because everything with Butch would have happened after this.
Maybe the point of this scene, or the point that Quentin Tarantino was trying to get across, is Jules had experienced this divine intervention. He had this religious experience when he was shot at by a revolver 6 times, and all 6 of the bullets miss him. And the way the camera is set up, it's actually some of the bullets land directly behind him, where there's no way.
The idea of how the camera is set up is that if you were the guy who was shooting at him, you would be seeing through his eyes.
Not all of the shots were around them.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them were right through them. Jules chose to see this for what Quentin Tarantino is trying to show, for what it was divine intervention. Jules takes that moment. He's, you know what? Really, I'm the evil in this world, but I am trying so hard in this moment to be the shepherd. And so Jules miraculously shuts down these robbers, leaves with his life and their lives. Vincent stays.
Presumably. So the scene with Butch, where they're in the bar, and Butch is talking to Marcellus. Jules and Vincent walk in, and they're not wearing their suits anymore. Chronologically, that happens after everything in the restaurant.
Jules moves on after that.
We assume he did.
He ain't in the rest?
That's right. He's not. Vince says, "Oh, I'm staying."
Yeah.
And
it was clear from the beginning.
Vincent dies.
It was also clear from the beginning that Jules was more capable.
He's clearly the smarter person.
Also more capable. He's better at that job.
Yes. Vincent is, like I was saying, he's a slave to his carnal desires. He can't say no to his addictions. But Jules has this higher view. He's like a step up because he says, there's something spiritual in this that I need to follow. We can assume that saves his life. And Marcel, his goal is money and power, right? So he stays alive by pursuing money and power. And Butch just wants to get free and hang out with his girl, right?
Butch goes about that by ripping people off.
Right, yeah. He also has his father's watch, his great-granddaddy's watch, that he'll sacrifice anything to keep with him. So even he has some higher purpose. But Vincent Vega, his only goal is just to chase the next pleasure.
Which he might have had a realization after Mrs. Wallace nearly dies. When she nearly dies, and he saves her life by giving her the adrenaline shot.
Yeah.
Right?
That epinephrine, yeah.
Yeah. Her whole interpretation of that, she makes it evident at the end when she says to him, until the next time.
Okay.
Makes it evident to him that she interpreted all of that on the summation, on the whole, as fun.
Okay. Just another day in her life. Just a thing that happened. Yeah.
And Vincent is looking at her like, what the fuck?
So is part of the idea there then, though, that she's able to pursue this hedonistic lifestyle, but she doesn't have to worry about paying for it or making it work because Marcellus makes it work for her.
And she does have this belief that she's invincible too.
But it's because other people keep her alive. Vincent knows that he has to keep this going himself, and he knows he has to keep himself alive, and yet he still just keeps on going.
Vincent is easily the most problematic character.
Is he really stupid, or is he just weak-minded?
He has an appreciation for his own mortality, so that gives him some intelligence. But then leaving the gun on the counter when he goes to take a shit.
Oh yeah, it's insanely
Stupid. And
especially given the business he's in.
the question is whether Vincent had the realization, determination between whether he is stupid or weak-minded when he's placing that gun on the counter and choosing to leave it there when he goes to take a shit. Is he forgetting that he should take his gun with him? Or is he remembering but doesn't want to deal with the
Just
hassle?
apathetic.
Doesn't want to deal with the hassle of lugging the gun with him.
That's a fair question. That would answer the question. If only.
He didn't get the moment to explain himself.
You ready for the next scene?
Sure.
The end of Marvin.
For no fault of his own.
And Vincent was being careless with his weapon.
So it's never the victim's fault. But Marvin, my guy, like in the apartment, Marvin just sits there and watches.
Right. Apparently he works for Jules and Vincent.
He didn't come in with them.
But apparently he's...
Is he the one that informed on his friend?
My assumption was, from the way they just took him and were talking to him and asking him questions, that he was part of their crew.
Yeah, Marvin was the informant.
Okay. So he wasn't necessarily part of the crew.
Yeah, he was the informant.
The rat.
So the way I viewed it before was that Marvin was just part of the group and they were taking him because Marvin was a witness and they didn't want to kill him. They wanted to remove Marvin from the scene. They might have paid him off later or something, right? I was saying Marvin should have left that apartment.
Oh, yeah.
Especially before they first addressed him. And during the shooting, he should have been gone.
Yeah. Even before bullets started flying, he should have been out that door.
So I'm guessing Marvin was owed money. That's why he went with them. He was probably going to get a debriefing by Marcellus, basically saying, you talk, you double cross us.
It's the end of you. Yeah.
You've seen how we operate. Here's your stack. Since he was part of that game, did he deserve it? I don't know. But he was in the game.
A fair assessment.
Also, Marvin crossed his homeboys. Every single one of them died.
That's true. He was in the Hotel California, man. Like, he could inform on his friends, but he couldn't escape their fate.
And so Marvin, through that take, he got what he deserved.
It's hard to say what people deserve and what they don't.
Because we didn't see a summation of his life. We don't know what was in the briefcase.
But I will say this.
We don't know if Marvin's friend was the legitimate owner of that briefcase. We know that it was stolen, but was it stolen back? Or Was it something that had no ownership and it was just a race to
Yeah, the briefcase with Marcellus's shiny golden thing, whatever it was, that everybody loves and thinks is so beautiful, but we never get to see what it actually is. What kind of allegory do you think there is in that briefcase?
it's any overwhelmingly positive, valuable thing. You can assume it's valuable because Marcellus wants it. You can assume it's positive because even bystanders think it's wonderful.
The thing is, it's all super underworldy, like crummy kind of people that you
Mhm.
wouldn't hang out with. And yet they're in possession of this incredibly beautiful.
Something super communist.
Ready for the next?
Oh,
This is actually the most famous scene from Pulp Fiction, where they're in the basement of the pawn shop with the ball gags in their mouth.
the choice to rape Marcellus probably saved Butch's life.
Okay, why?
Roles reversed. If I were Marcellus, this guy's already crossed me. My moral code would I'd probably give myself kudos in Marcellus's position if I see Butch getting raped and I just put him down.
So you're saying Marcellus would not have saved Butch? I agree with that.
I think Marcellus probably would have just killed them both.
Done everybody in there. Would Marcellus have been able to get his hands loose? Because Butch was able to get his hands free.
Yeah, but just overpowered it. He didn't really use that much technique. He just overpowered those knots. And if you look at Marcellus's build compared
Oh,
to
yeah.
Butch's, Marcellus is much
Yeah,
bigger.
Ving Rhames, he was built like nobody's business. I don't think he's actually still alive. I think Ving Rhames passed away. And Bruce Willis right now he has frontotemporal dementia and he's in long-term care. Like he's nearing the end.
Gotcha.
So it's interesting to me because this movie came out when I was 17 years old. I saw it in the Dollar Theater. After the movies played in the regular theater where it was like $5 or $6 to go see it, then they'd play it in the Dollar Theater.
Okay.
And actually, the Dollar Theater was better than the regular theater because you could go there and you'd see the movie for $1 and there was video games. There was like even the popcorn and everything was cheaper. And the Dollar Theater was better than the regular theater. I don't think they're around anymore. You got screwed, dude. Sorry.
When we saw Gremlins, how much did they charge you?
You know what? I didn't check. It was like $30.
But
I think the tickets were like $16 each.
okay, you got ripped then.
It was so cool to go to Parkway Theater.
Mm.
Parkway Theater in Minneapolis, it's freaking an awesome venue. If you're up here, if you're visiting here, go to Parkway Theater, see a show.
Yeah, and they can't really be cheap anymore because not everyone wants to go watch a movie.
Yeah.
I tend to just download my shit that I want to see.
Yeah, that's the thing is streaming is eliminating theaters.
I don't
Like,
stream.
downloading whatever. We watched Pulp Fiction on YouTube.
That's true. Vicariously, I streamed it.
What I was going to say is it's weird for me to have watched that when I was 17 years old. And now all these characters, they're old men now. Some are dead. Some are dying. They're in their 70s. So strange for me because
30 years from now,
it feels like yesterday I was at
Yeah.
the Dollar Theater watching this movie.
hopefully you and I both be watching these videos. Going, damn, that was yesterday.
Remember yesterday when we made this podcast?
And you'll be starting to have FTD in on this.
Man, I hope not.
All right.
Dementia is just the one thing I do not want. Okay, I don't want cancer either. But
You'll live long enough to get it, dude.
I hope not. I hope I live long and don't get it.
I hope so too, but cerebral atrophy is what it is.
If you look at married people tend to outlive unmarried people. It's huge. Like for men, you live 12 years longer. For women, on average, 7 years longer. Part of it, so in happiness surveys, it's been found that married people, on average, are happier than single people. There have been studies that found happier people are more likely to get married. There's some nuance there. Does marriage actually make you happier? Or does being happier make you, is that what actually leads to you getting married? I tend to think maybe one builds on the other. You're already a happy person. Being married, on average, makes you even happier.
If you're also describing people that make it to end of life with their marriage.
The biggest impact, there has not been formal research on this. So this is what the data looks like to me. Having another person you live with that you talk to every day just reduces your risk of dementia and memory loss. It kicks out those neurological problems so much further. I think the bulk of that life extension is probably,
They're socializing.
and it protects you a little bit from dementia. It probably also has a positive impact as far as heart disease, because your sympathetic nervous system wouldn't be as active all the time.
Marcellus being the chosen victim probably saved Butch.
Saved them both,
Yeah.
because Butch wouldn't saved him.
Butch nearly ran out the door, but then he chose to look back. And once you reconsider that,
He's sentimental. He went back to his apartment to get his watch when he knew someone would probably be waiting there to kill him.
right? And he abused the person in front of him over forgetting it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. He abused.
Fabian.
Right. Yeah. His girlfriend.
Yeah. Which the person in front of you is way more important than the watch.
I agree. Butch's character was volatile.
I ain't saying Bruce Willis is an asshole.
But the character Butch was very impulsive.
He had enough forward thinking, though. He knew that if he rigged the fight, he would have a bunch of people who bet on it. So he bet on himself.
In another town. He was in LA and he had his bookie in Nashville. Set all the bets.
Yeah. And so he puts a bunch of money on himself. He goes in, beats the guy till he's dead. It worked out. But going for the watch was a mistake.
There was no plan or anything.
But I'm glad he went back.
Pulp Fiction is about Vincent and Jules. To me, Butch is Deus Ex Machina, God in the machine. He's the character that pushes the story along. But in a sense, he also is a main character of his own story within the story. Butch is an entirely different story. It's a separate story from Vincent, and it's like a subplot. I guess
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
If you look at it from the shooter's eyes, I believe those two center bullets could have gone through Jules.
Yeah, they should have gone right through him.
Yeah.
And the bullets to the right of those should have gone through Vincent. Like one of them should have hit Vincent.
And Jules describes feeling God there. That's what's significant. Vincent and Jules get into this argument where Vincent's like, that was just dumb luck. It shook out our way. And Jules says, maybe, but what's significant is that I felt touched, which demonstrates to him that it was divine intervention. But Vincent didn't. How much of that was Vincent just not letting himself feel that? And how much of that was Jules choosing to see meaning where there wasn't any? Because objectively, you and I can both say that's a risky way of living,
Yeah.
the way that Jules and Vincent did.
Yeah, they were living on the edge.
How many cronies do you think died before Marcellus got those two?
Oh, yeah. I'm sure he goes through a lot. So there's this idea of fast life history strategy. And basically what it is, as a child, you are subjected to extreme adversity and deprivation, trauma, or extreme illness, right?
Okay.
Or just being sick, right? Your body and brain adjust to say, how do we survive and reproduce? The gas gets pressed on everything about maturity. You go into puberty earlier, you become more of a pleasure-seeking creature. Your brain cells create more dopamine receptors.
Okay.
So you become more dopamine sensitive, right? So that leads you to become more active and pursue more pleasure. You have a higher feeling of motivation. The other side of it, though, is it also makes you more prone to things like psychosis. Jules and Vince are pursuing this fast life history strategy. The other side is a slow life history strategy. And basically, if you grow up in this super stable environment where things are stable and abundant, then all of those maturity posts, all those signposts get pushed out a little bit.
Okay.
So there are a lot of people who say the reason you see so much delay in childbirth in the developed world is because more people are naturally pursuing a slow life history strategy. All these underworld figures, all these criminals, they're all pursuing this fast life history strategy that you literally age faster.
What about Marcellus?
He's much more calculating. And look at the wolf.
Oh, yeah. The wolf. I think it's the wolf's side hustle. He does it for the love of the game.
Okay. That he's otherwise actually wealthy on his own.
Yeah. Or maybe he did this kind of shit coming up. He made it. And that's how he pays his dues.
Oh, okay. The funny thing about Hollywood and TV shows is they portray
the craziest part of the wolf was Vincent's indignation with him wanting him to say please.
Oh, yeah.
When the wolf is there cleaning up Vincent's mess. He just directs. He knows what to do. The three of them, Jules, Vincent, and the homeowner, they could have figured that shit out.
The homeowner is played by Quentin Tarantino, by the way.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, he puts himself in all, he gives himself a role in all his movies.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, good for him, man.
Anyway, back to the homeowner.
Yeah, the three of them could have figured that shit out. But the wolf just had better control of the situation. The wolf's value is undeniable, right? Jules might have been capable of that kind of decision making, but the homeowner, right? He was apprehensive about his sheets, giving up his bedding, and the wolf was able to quell that response.
Yeah, just buy him off, really. Say,
how about I get you a better one?
Yeah.
The wolf had to address the sentimental value. And given Jules and his relationship, him and the homeowner, I don't know that Jules would have been able to convince him, even if he said the exact same things that the wolf did. And we both know Jules wouldn't have worded it that way.
Oh,
so
I really like the way Jules talks in the movie.
He's straight up, man.
Check out the brain on Brad. You are one smart motherfucker. I think that role actually created Samuel L. Jackson's actor persona, because the whole rest of his career, he's talked kind of like Jules.
He did an excellent job.
So I would say that role was that role of playing Jules. That was a pivotal moment. I put that, yeah. Personally, I think the best performance by a movie actor was Tom Hanks in Forrest Gump.
Okay.
Like, that's just, I cannot think of a better performance of a character by an actor. But Samuel L. Jackson's portrayal of Jules was, I can't put it quite in the same category, but maybe the next category down.
And one that jumps out to me as a hateable character, probably one of the most hateable characters in cinematic history, is played by Samuel L. Jackson in Django.
Oh, Django Unchained? Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
That was an off-the-chain role. He played it perfectly, and I hated that character.
The actor who plays the commandant of Auschwitz in Schindler's List plays that role so convincingly that you will hate that man. He plays that role so well. In fact, the real person he's playing was so reviled that the SS even executed him.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because he was even awful by their standards.
Okay.
You can look up the name of the guy who played the commandant in Schindler's List. He won Best Supporting Actor for playing that role. Eamon Goth was
played by Ralph Fiennes.
Ralph Fiennes. So Ralph Fiennes played Amon Goth. Amon Goth, what really was the Nazi commandant of Auschwitz. And you know what? We'll watch Schindler's List. If you're pissed off, that movie will piss you off even more.
Samuel L. Jackson's ability to act is.
Without him, I don't think that movie could have been.
Without Jules?
I personally think any other character, you could swap out the actor for someone else. But I don't know that anyone other than Samuel L. Jackson could play Jules.
I'm trying to think of a counter argument. I'm not really coming up with one.
Okay. Since we're talking about divine intervention, do you have any thoughts on divine intervention? Is it a real thing?
It's for sure something people perceive. Because we've talked about this point a couple times where overcoming addiction, you got to get some really true deep prayer in or some really true deep meditation in. And divine intervention is something that happens to people and they are able to make fundamental life changes. So it has to be something that occurs in your brain that affects your neuroplasticity. That said, I don't believe in God. I don't believe in a God. So,
do you believe in anything divine outside of
unobservable?
So you recognize that it's a possibility.
Yes.
But you think it's less likely.
Yeah, more likely than not. There is no God.
Gotcha.
That's how I see it.
Okay.
That said, there's been a shit ton in value to a lot of religion, especially on the individual level when it is not institutionalized. I can't make a substantial argument against it on an individual level. Obviously, institutions like the Catholic Church, we can easily indemnify, right? ISIS has their religious component to it. The whole thing is religious extremism.
What I would say is it's extremism with a veneer of religion.
Yeah, most Muslims detest ISIS.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my bad.
No, you're okay.
But yeah, so as far as an institution goes, for the most part, institutionally, it can be a good thing, I think, because it's a way to put communities together.
A shared belief structure.
That said, using it as a justification for violence or systematic oppression,
it's unacceptable. Yeah.
And there is no space for it.
So I'm going to tell you about the Hubble tension. But to do that, I got to start at the beginning.
Okay.
And that instanton is a single particle where time and space, all space-time, is all one dimension. Like they're completely collapsed into a single point. So when you call it an instanton, it's because all of time exists within that one point. And in fact, you don't even have what we would call a chronological sense of time. Stephen Hawking describes it as imaginary time. If you thought of a globe where you have a north and south pole, you have lines of latitude that go around it and lines of longitude that go from pole to pole. So you could say those lines of latitude are real time and those lines of longitude are imaginary time. It's a mathematical idea, complex numbers, where you have the real component 4 and an imaginary component. So 4
plus I.
Yeah. 4 plus 2i, 4 plus 3i. So the real component situates you along a line of latitude, a specific track of real time. And then the line of longitude puts you at a spot in imaginary time. It's that imaginary time that gives the universe shape. In that instanton, there is no real time. All there is the imaginary time.
Okay.
So just like with moving along a line of longitude, you go from pole to pole. Whenever you move in time on an instanton, you are just moving from pole to pole. One moment is not separate from another. But if that imaginary time inflates out just a little bit, then you can see on the right, you get a track of real time. that it can then follow. And that point at which you inflate from purely imaginary time to having a real component. So it's pure conjecture, right? How the Big Bang happened. The Big Bang, just quantum fluctuation within an instanton. It inflates out, it grows out a little bit. Now you can have a real-time component and you start moving along that real-time track or multiple real-time tracks. So you have that initial moment when the instanton begins to grow. You have a time track, a track of real time. You get all these little quantum fluctuations within this super tiny universe, smaller than a proton.
Okay.
Within that, you get all these quantum fluctuations. You've gone from a universe where there is no separation between time and points. It's the same throughout. Wherever you went within it, everything would look exactly the same. Time would feel the same. Now you have this expansion and these fluctuations within this little sphere or whatever the shape is. And then you have this moment where all of a sudden it inflates faster than the speed of light. If you look at this timeline, you see this period of inflation, right?
Right.
And that period of inflation is over by the time you get to 10 to the negative 32 seconds after the Big Bang.
Okay.
Think of how small.
Yeah, what is Planck time?
I don't know. I think 10 to the negative 43.
Is it Planck?
Planck.
10 to the negative 44.
10 to the negative 44. So you can actually have many moments of Planck time. You can have a trillion moments of Planck time within that 10 to the negative 32. So you can have a lot happen.
How do you calculate that? How do you come up with that?
10 to the negative 32.
10 to the negative 44.
You can look up how, what it is. Those are units at which all the known laws of physics still apply. Once you get to time periods shorter than Planck time, you can't, not all of the known physical constants apply anymore.
Oh, okay.
So you have this little ball that has gone from being unbearably small to the size of a proton. In just an instant, it inflates from being the size of a proton to the size of a tennis ball. It happens faster than the speed of light. If it happened at the speed of light, then you would still have all those different fluctuations moving back and forth within it, and one would be able to get to the end of the other.
Okay.
And so you'd wind up with a universe that was completely the same throughout.
Like homogeneous?
So now you can have a universe that's heterogeneous, right? And then the universe continues to expand from that tennis ball size. If you go to the previous slide, there are some conjectures or theories that suggest that inflation actually never stops. Like you have inflation within one part, it becomes inflation in another part, and so you wind up with all these universes. You wind up with a multiverse. One way to picture that multiverse is you have all these Hubble bubbles, basically spherical universes out there separate from each other. The inflation just goes on and on. One inflates out of the next, or one inflates out of the one before it, and then another inflates out of that. And it's just eternal inflation, right? Another way to describe it is to say each one is sitting on its own surface of space-time. So they can actually all be stacked up one on top of the other, just like these little flat panels. But each is within its own surface of space-time, so they can't interact. If you go down to the next, you can see that after inflation, you get to a microsecond, and that's when things have cooled enough for protons to begin to form. You have this period of time where you have protons and electrons, you have baryons. Obviously, you would have dark matter too. But it's so hot that the electrons are flying around free. They cannot stick to the nuclei.
Okay.
Photons are released when electrons drop in their orbitals. But since there's no electrons in any orbitals, there's no photons. All the photons that were released after the initial inflation or the Big Bang, all the photons that were released or created in that process are basically run into this soup of protons and electrons, and they get absorbed, right? They just become part of the heat. About 4/7 of all the matter in the universe becomes helium, right? Because helium is 2 protons, 2 neutrons, right? So the bulk of that matter, the baryonic matter, actually becomes helium, right? But because of how much heavier helium is, you wind up with 3 times as much hydrogen as helium. Coming out of that, 25% of the gas in the universe is helium.
Okay.
You have this point where nuclear fusion ends because the universe becomes diluted enough at 3 minutes. And for the next 380,000 years, there's no light in the universe, right? So the next slide just it's free electrons. If you go to the next slide, it's free electrons out in outer space. Thank you, Google Gemini, for creating that for me. There wouldn't have been galaxies or clouds either. There wouldn't have been atoms as we know them. If you go to the next slide, this is NASA's video on acoustic oscillations. So what happens is you have this universe where there's this matter. And yeah, so there's the Big Bang. You basically have what looks like sound waves bouncing through it because it's so close together. And those sound waves keep propagating through the whole thing. You get these bands where there's just more matter than on other places. And when you look out into the cosmos and measure where galaxies are, you're able to see that there's a grouping of galaxies. There's a point where there's an increased number at around 480 million light years. And they show it right there on that graph. You see the bump?
Yeah.
Yeah. So those are called baryonic acoustic oscillations. And they're basically like primordial sound waves. So if you want to go to the next slide, are you seeing the rest?
There was something that I wanted to see again. So the probability of seeing another galaxy is higher the closer they are.
So
They're more likely to be grouped together than not.
So that's how you get this spider web looking view of the cosmic web with dark matter rivers that stretch across the universe. It's a result of these oscillations that occurred before there was really even light. Now, that did continue a little bit after the birth of light. If you want to go to the next slide, what is that?
That is
The cosmic microwave background. The cosmic microwave background. Basically, the universe cooled to a little bit below 3,000 Kelvin. So think about 3,000 Kelvin, how hot that is. And it was enough for electrons to be able to enter those orbitals.
Do you know the boiling?
You look up the boiling point of steel. Or I guess that would be the boiling point of iron.
3000 C. Okay.
So this is the point where electrons enter the orbitals of those protons. And you have like fully formed atoms, right? And so you get this huge release of light during this period of time, this huge release of basically gamma and X-rays, right? But by now it's so redshifted that we perceive it as it's basically fossilized light. It's static that you see anywhere you point a radio telescope. And these red and blue parts are variations in heat. These variations are like 3 microdegrees. So just 1 microdegree. It's so little fluctuation. But what those fluctuations show is that there were places where there was more matter and places where there was less. So you had all these atoms that formed, but you didn't yet have stars. So that's when you enter the dark age of the universe. And you have a couple 100 million years before stars start to form. This image on the right is believed to be the oldest star that we've ever observed. A strong helium-2 emitter with an extremely blue UV spectral slope at Z equals 8.16. Z is redshift. At the bottom of that picture of the universe, so Z is redshift, and you can see at the bottom they have redshift, and it gets higher as you go backward. And then at the top, it shows you years after the Big Bang. So a redshift of 8 is about 1 billion years after the Big Bang. And a way to think about it, too, is the universe was an eighth the size it is now. And on the bottom left, you can see its spectrum, and you can see it has that spike at helium-2. And that's kind of all it's got. You've got hydrogen and you've got helium.
What's helium-2?
It would be helium-4. That's the helium-2 spike. That's
Helium-2.
what I'm saying is that's the helium's second spike.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that helium spike, it's basically the whole spectrum on this thing is just hydrogen and helium. They said there's a little bit of lithium that they could measure. It's believed that is one of the oldest stars. Prior to those initial primordial stars forming, you had almost 1 billion years with no light. After that initial collapse of electrons onto those protons, the initial formation of atoms, you wouldn't have any ionized atoms. There was no ionizing radiation. There was no starlight. So you would have just had atoms that were completely formed. If you go, you can see on this, you have this period of reionization where the stars form. But if you go to the next slide, those stars were not enough. The starlight of one star is not enough to clear the gas and be able to reionize all the gas that's floating in the universe. What you had to have was a formation. You had to have galaxies begin to form. These on here are called faint dwarf galaxies. And you have Sculptor A, B, and C, right? And they are these super tiny dwarf galaxies where they only have dozens to maybe hundreds of stars, right? And it was believed all the way up until just a couple years ago that it really was impossible for galaxies to start to form like this early in the universe. But two different things happened. One, with the JWST, they were able to see actual tiny dwarf galaxies that were formed all the way back at that early redshift, that redshift of 8, 9, 10. They also have found that these super faint dwarf galaxies that orbit full-size spiral galaxies have almost no heavy elements in them. They have almost no metals. They're almost purely hydrogen and helium gas with a little bit of lithium. They were made up of these primordial stars that are estimated to have been anywhere from 10 to 30 times the size of the sun and only burned for a few million years before they went supernova. And with how big they were, you wouldn't have even gotten black holes out of them. When a star that big collapses, you basically get this huge antimatter reaction in the center that blows the whole thing apart. You can't even get a black hole out of it. So all the black holes that were forming were actually from the mass of gas. It was just collapsing of gas. It wasn't because of stars. So
It would have been like two stars consuming each other.
Even then, I don't think it would have been possible because of how big and hot these stars were.
Gotcha. It's my understanding matter will always form a star before it forms a black hole.
With things as they are now, but there's less gas in the universe now than there was then. The universe was much more dense. My guess is if you're talking about the supermassive black holes in our universe, those probably all started to form even prior to the cosmic microwave background, because things would have been dense enough that they could have started to form. If you go to the next slide, there you go. Most of the photons that reionize the universe came from dwarf galaxies. And this is basically from the results of a JWST survey. And so these dwarf galaxies had enough stars massed together that they could shine out enough light to clear the gas, to reionize all that gas. It's like the difference between having one light and having a ton of searchlights, or the difference between having one fan and
Hundreds of fans, yeah.
And if you go to the next slide, this is Henrietta Leavitt, one of the most important astronomers as far as our understanding of the universe goes. She did this all by hand in the 18 and 1900s. She worked for Harvard University, the astronomy department. And she was given all these photographic plates from Southern Telescope. She was looking at Cepheid variable stars. The way a Cepheid variable works, and these are stars typically in the 10 to 20 solar mass range, although some have been found that are as small as 3 solar masses. What happens is they produce helium, and that helium collects within the corona. And when you have double ionized helium, there's no electrons going around it, right? So if it gets hit with more light, it just absorbs it. It just gets hotter. Right?
Okay.
It just expands out. It doesn't re-release light. So that helium-2 is opaque. What happens with these Cepheid variables is you get this collection of helium-2 in an outer shell. And it actually kind of darkens the star until that helium-2 expands out far enough that light can that heat can escape, that light can escape.
Okay.
And then all that helium just suddenly reionizes, and you get this release of light. It suddenly gets bright again, and then it slowly darkens. And you can see on the bottom right, that's what you're seeing is the variability. And as it turns out, the variability of a Cepheid variable star, the period at which you have that variability in brightness, correlates perfectly with the brightness. So the brighter it is, the longer the period. So what she discovered was the first universal candle. If you can find one of these stars anywhere in the universe, you can watch its period and know exactly how much light is actually coming off it. From that, you can tell how far away it is.
Okay.
So using those, you can determine the distance. The more accurately you can measure it, the more accurately you can measure the distance. Henrietta Leavitt, just to say one more quick thing about her, she had 5 kids. She also had Crohn's disease at a time when there was no treatment for it. She lived into her 50s. And she passed away. And when she passed away, people like at her funeral said not only was she brilliant and a great colleague and so great to work with, but she was actually the kindest person I knew. Could you imagine people saying that? Yeah, the world lost a gem when she passed away. But look at the title of that paper.
1,777 variables in the Magellanic Clouds.
If you read that paper, it is just table after table that she did by hand of looking at the period and the brightness of each of those. 1777. Can you imagine?
Got it. Now I understand.
If you go to the next slide.
She did that by hand.
While she had that illness and took care of 5 kids, that is Edwin Hubble. He worked out of the telescope in Flagstaff, Arizona. And what he did was he took that universal candle that Henrietta Leavitt discovered, Cepheid variable stars. He specifically looked at was M31 and M33. And they are both in the local group of galaxies. That map there has the Milky Way in the center, right? Milky Way isn't really in the center of the local group. It's not the heaviest. It definitely isn't the center of gravity, right? So if you go toward that little cluster on the right, you can find M31. M33 is 22. You can see how close they are together, right? M31 is the largest galaxy in the local group, and it is the Andromeda galaxy. And M33 is the 3rd largest in the local group. The Milky Way is the 2nd largest, right? He was looking at these variable stars within the Andromeda galaxy and in the galaxy next door to it. I have marked in red what his paper says. And what he calculated was that the corresponding distance is 285,000 parsecs, right? Now, a parsec is about 3¼ light years. I don't know why parsecs were chosen.
A parsec is 3.26 light years because it's a unit derived from Earth's orbit and parallax. So the distance from the Earth to the Sun is 1 AU, and that is a single arc second. And so the distance between that, of them coming to a point together, is 3.26 light years. I don't know why you would use that.
Because then you're just looking at arc seconds. Like, how far apart are these 2 objects in the sky? That makes sense because parsecs would correlate directly to your measuring instrument, your telescope. So by his calculation, the Andromeda Nebula, M31, was not even 1 million light years away. But now we know it's over 2 million light years away. So his instrumentation wasn't super accurate, but you're still talking about photographic plates and measuring by hand. Prior to that, there was some debate. Is the Milky Way all there, the whole universe? Or are all these little spiral nebulae, are they other island universes? That was Immanuel Kant. That was how he described them. He said, these are island universes. He was saying that a couple hundred years ago. But there was debate for a long time, like, how big is the universe really? And what Hubble proved using this universal candle is that the universe is enormous. There are millions of Milky Ways, right? Now we know there's quadrillions of galaxies out there. So if you go to the next slide,
That's so huge.
one thing that Hubble found in a later paper that he published was that when he looked at galaxies, he kept finding that the further away they were, the faster they were moving, or the more redshifted they were, the faster they were moving away from us. He found that it was a linear relationship. Velocity equals h0, which is the Hubble constant, times distance. For decades after he found this, astronomers kept observing the universe and documenting how fast things were moving and where things were. They assumed we had this Big Bang and everything was expanding out, but that expansion is going to slow. Gravity is going to pull everything back together. In 1998 and 1999, a bunch of papers were published that relied on data from the Hubble telescope. The Hubble telescope went up in the late 80s and started getting all these great images and data. You also had computers that could be used to calculate all this stuff. They looked at type 1A and type 2 supernovae. Type 1A supernovae are where a white dwarf draws enough material off a companion that it explodes, or two white dwarfs run into each other and they explode. And when that happens, you would think you would actually get a neutron star or a black hole, but no. What you have is this instant antimatter reaction that just blows the whole thing apart, right? And you can see that type 1 supernova on the top, sitting next to that galaxy. That type 1 supernova is as bright as the center of that galaxy. That's how much energy is released. On the bottom, you have a type 2 supernova. Type 2 supernovas are basically where a star explodes, where a star 8 to 12 times the size of our sun collapses, and you have enough material left to form a neutron star or a black hole. So what they did was they looked at this and they determined the Hubble constant to be 71.5. They found that the universe wasn't slowing down. No matter where they looked, it wasn't slowing down. The rate of acceleration of 71.5 kilometers per second per megaparsec, so 3.26 million light years, becomes 3.26 million light years plus 70 kilometers every second. And what they found was everywhere they looked, that was the average rate of expansion. The universe wasn't slowing down. In fact, it was speeding up. And that was 1999. If you go to the next slide, on the upper left, you have this expanding universe. It just keeps on going faster and faster. When I was in elementary school, people talked about there being a big crunch. There was a big bang. Now, the universe will eventually slow down and then accelerate back together. There will be a big crunch, and the cycle just repeats. But what this showed was that cycle, there's no reason to believe it will repeat. The universe just inflates forever, keeps on expanding forever. Instead of all that energy being recaptured, it just dissipates. Eventually, all the matter in the universe will be too thin to form stars anymore. The only energy you'll have left is the energy from matter falling apart, from matter degenerating. And then after that, all you'll have is the energy from black holes, right? Eventually, all those black holes will evaporate. And once they get to a low enough weight, they explode. And you have this flash, right? But nothing reforms. Eventually, you just have this complete cooling of the universe to where there is no matter anymore. All that's left is photons spreading out in this ever-expanding medium of space-time. Photons are ageless. Photons don't experience time. So effectively, time ceases to exist. It becomes a thing with no meaning. It becomes absurd. It's
Interesting.
right. So the myth of Sisyphus, where he pushes up the boulder, right? You have this big bang where he pushes up the boulder and then this big crunch when it rolls back down and it repeats. You don't even have that. You just have this universe that expands out till it cools off and becomes completely meaningless. At that point, after the 90s, you had two satellites that went up. One is WMAP or MWAP, microwave something. Anyway, WMAP. And basically, it mapped the microwaves in the universe. And then you had ESA sent up the Planck satellite. And what they both did was they mapped the cosmic microwave background. And they both did this independently. So you have two instruments. And based on the observations in the cosmic microwave background, they came up with a Hubble constant of 67.4 kilometers per second per megaparsec. And they were both so close and so accurate that the chances that they measured this incorrectly is like in the 5 to 6 sigma range. So go to the next slide. What you had next is the shoes collaboration, where it was the Hubble telescope, the James Webb Space Telescope, and the Gaia telescope, European Space Agency's Gaia telescope. And they measured the rate of expansion, the Hubble constant, within the local universe, beyond our local group. This was called the shoes collaboration. Shoes basically stands for the things they looked at, supernovae and variable stars and things like that. They came up with a Hubble constant of 73. They had many measurements independently by 3 different instruments. And again, they have this 5 to 6 sigma certainty of this constant. And if you go to the next slide, you can see where back in 2001, you had that 1999 value, right? And it continues to narrow down that band of uncertainty. In the blue, that's your shoes collaboration. And in red, you have Planck and WMAP, right? And they're coming out with this lower value, and the uncertainty bars just keep getting smaller. You have this value for the Hubble constant that's recent and within our local group. And then you have this value for the Hubble constant that's ancient and covers the whole universe at that time. And you have this huge disparity between the two. And that's the Hubble tension. And so you have all these possible explanations that are boiling out of it. Some researchers are saying dark energy is evolving. The value is changing as the universe ages. And as it increases, it'll eventually just rip the whole universe apart. So you'll have this gradual cooling and expansion right now, and suddenly have this runaway expansion that destroys all matter. But then what's the mechanism that's causing that? And is it causing it the same way throughout the whole universe? What is the dynamic there? You have this other idea on the upper right that the Hubble constant isn't actually that high. What it is, we're in a void. We are inside one of those bubbles. We're not on the edge of one of those bubbles where there's all these other galaxies. Our local group is within a void. So it looks like everything is moving away. It looks like the cosmological constant is larger than it actually is because of where we're situated within the universe. And then I've read where other people have said what it actually is, these other universes within the multiverse, we are feeling their gravity. And their gravity is pulling things away from us faster, right? So you have this whole new era where you have all these new conjectures. How do you find data to prove it? How do you develop a model that's internally consistent? And then how do you test it with data? So anyway, now you understand the Hubble tension. So what are your thoughts?
I like the third theory the most, but I think the second theory is probably the most realistic.
Explain the third theory and why you like it the most.
That there's other universes pulling on ours and ripping it apart. That's pretty cool. The second one factors in perspective, so that's why I'm inclined to call that one the most realistic.
That we're within a void.
The first one, obviously, I'm no expert.
So the idea that it just evolves over time, that sounds like an interesting idea, but that means there has to be something pushing it to change. There has to be some cause for the change.
So I guess the reason it feels the most believable is it addresses our own fallibility. And then the first one, you have more than one factor that you would have to figure out for.
The other thing is, just because it's evolving in this way where we're at, does that mean it's evolving in the same way everywhere else in the universe?
Who knows?
That would somewhat explain how you get this sudden inflationary era.
So I've seen the expansion of the universe explained as a balloon inflating and you're on the outside of the balloon. But what if it's not a homogeneous shape like a balloon? What if there are points that are going like this and actually other parts that are shrinking and other parts that are growing?
That could be happening at this moment, and we wouldn't be able to see it.
Yeah, and then you could actually have parts that expand so quickly, and then over here it kind of contracts, and then you'd have a part break off.
That's the idea of continuous inflation, where you just have one universe branching off of it.
I bet throughout our entire lifetimes, this theory is going to change, but it's really fun.
There's a lot of people going to get entire careers out of trying to explain this.
Too bad I'm not in a position to be one of them yet.
One of the other things, though, you're talking about a period of 125 years where humanity's entire understanding of the universe was changed by Hubble's discovery that the Andromeda galaxy was outside of our own, that Andromeda and M33 are outside of our galaxy. Not just his discovery, his proof of it. And then in 1999, our understanding of the universe was changed again when it was found that the expansion goes on and it just keeps getting faster. It doesn't slow down. We're not going back to the Big Bang. We're not going back to the instanton. We're going to keep expanding out. And now it's changed again when we're finding that, oh, wait, this constant itself is changing. This constant isn't necessarily the same everywhere, or at least it doesn't look the same everywhere. So now the question is, what is it really? What is it doing?
Interesting. I think each discovery has been less radical than the last, though.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. Believing that the Milky Way is its own universe and then finding out there's another universe.
Yeah, that's true. Not
Right.
just one, but millions.
Yeah.
Millions were known at the time. Now quadrillions are known.
That's off the chain, by the way. That's such an unfathomable number.
It's insane.
Yeah.
That would mean if you took all the grains of sand on the beach, there's probably more galaxies in the universe than there are grains of sand on planet Earth. And there's definitely more stars in the universe than there are grains of sand on planet Earth.
7.5 quintillion grains of sand.
So there might be more grains of sand than there are galaxies. But that's assuming we're seeing all there is to see.
20 quadrillion ants.
So there are as many galaxies in the observable universe
As there are ants on the planet.
That's so cool.
Think about how many ants, like, you've accidentally stepped on.
You're destroying entire galaxies.
How insignificant a single ant seems.
So if you were looking at the universe as a whole, would our galaxy seem insignificant?
Yeah. Inarguably.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Interesting. Huh. Yeah, that's a tough perspective, dude. It doesn't really weigh on me, but that's an interesting perspective.
So I can tell you for me, growing up when the Big Crunch was the most commonly accepted theory, right? And then all of a sudden that going away, like I paid a lot of attention to the space stuff in school.
Oh, okay.
And like for me, that actually changed my whole point of view of how the universe operated.
See, there's a lot of people your age that they're still reeling from the fact that PEMDAS changed.
PEMDAS? What's PEMDAS?
Order of operations. Because it's to the left of multiplication. You actually do the division first now.
Oh, really?
Do you still not know that?
You're supposed to do division first. No.
If you have 3 divide 2 times 5, you do it as it reads. 3 divide 2 times 5. The M and the D are interchangeable when there are no parentheses. 3 divide 2 times 5. If it was 3 times 2 divide 5, you do the 3 times 2 first.
Does that actually make a difference, though? 3
Yes.
times 2 divided by 5, so 6/5.
One.
So take 2 divided by 5 times 3. Either way, you get the same.
All right.
I can understand what you're saying.
The PEMDAS is not all hard set. And you do the same with addition and subtraction. You do it as it reads. So 3 minus 2 plus 5 versus 3 plus 2 minus 5.
You do it as it reads instead of adding first. What I learned was it was multiply, divide, add, subtract, always. So it was parentheses, exponents.
Those are still the same. But now it's just more reliant. Put parentheses on the things you want to notate first.
Yeah. That's what I always do. I prefer to eliminate confusion for the next person who's got to look at it, assuming anybody does. Any other thoughts today?
3 divide 2 times 5 is 6.5.
3 divide 2 times 5? But it wouldn't matter if you did 3 times 5 divided by 2. You have 15/2.
Keeping the numbers in the same order, but the operations flipped. 3, 2, 5.
Okay.
3 divide 2 times 5. 3 times 2.
Oh, you're saying, okay. So what you're saying is 3 divide 2 times 5. That would be 3 tenths. Well, 3 divide 2 times 5.
It's 6. 6.5.
7.5.
7.5.
Okay, yes. Okay, I see what you're saying. So now the correct answer would be 7.5. Using the one I grew up with, it would be 3 tenths.
Maybe. Yeah. It's also not 3 tenths. 3 times 2 divide 5. 6 fifths.
6 fifths. Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. Okay.
Anyway. Matters not.
Okay. 3 divide 2 times 5.
Yeah.
3 divide 2 times 5. So 3 divide 2 times 5 is...
That would be 3 divided by 10, yeah.
So 3 divided by 2 times 5 would be 7.5. So yeah, you get significantly different answers. An entire order of magnitude difference. I didn't know it had completely changed. Thanks for educating.
So yeah, there's a lot of people that found out when that change occurred that they're still reeling from it, dude.
Gotcha. Do you want to go back to our slideshow? To our last slide?
A noiseless, patient spider.
Do you know who wrote this?
Is it in Leaves of Grass?
It actually is, yeah. It's Walt Whitman. He wrote this as he was basically dying. He had a stroke that left him debilitated, and he couldn't travel anymore, had to walk with a cane. And during that time, he revised Leaves of Grass and added some poems to it. This is one of the ones that he added. You can think about this as almost an end-of-life poem by Walt Whitman.
A noiseless, patient spider. I mark it where, on a little promontory, it stood isolated. What's a promontory?
A spot where you can look out a world. Marked a little promontory where it stood isolated.
Yeah, marked how to explore the vacant, vast surrounding. It launched forth filament, out of itself, ever unreeling them, ever tirelessly speeding them. And you, O my soul, where you stand, surrounded, detached, in measureless oceans of space, ceaselessly musing, venturing, throwing, seeking the spears to connect them, till the bridge be formed, till the ductile onshow, hold,
till the ductile anchor,
hold, till the gossamer thread you fling catch somewhere, oh my soul. Interesting.
What do you think it's about?
I think he's imagining himself as the spider, spinning his web to new things, but he's still just the spider.
Yeah. He's stuck in his spot until one of those thread catches. Yeah. Which kind of describes how I approach the absurdity, the myth of Sisyphus, the Sisyphean task. I am always trying to find the meaning and the purpose. until something I look out on reflects that meaning back to me.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think a lot of the nihilism in our culture, dude, I think a lot of it is just a product of being depressed, dude. I don't think most people, when they're thinking healthily within their norm, their true norm, their healthy norm, I don't think they're that nihilistic, dude.
I agree. The nihilistic experience is a kind of an isolation. The nihilistic experience, in a lot of ways, is born out of isolation. You didn't have nihilistic philosophy really prior to Nietzsche, right? Which was late 1800s. Society had become sufficiently industrialized that there were a lot of people who could basically live with a pension. They didn't really have to do the manual labor to keep themselves going anymore. They could buy the things they need. You didn't have to make so many things of your own to meet your needs.
The isolation makes you feel like you're going to die,
Right.
which is where that nihilistic thinking comes from. And I think it's people discrediting their own biology when they choose to think that everything is going to shit when really, yeah, your whole world is going to shit, but the whole world isn't
Well,
going to shit.
is your whole world actually going to shit though? Or is it just feels like it is?
That's your body's reaction to your isolation, which you cannot survive.
You will die sooner, like we were talking about. You just become more prone to dementia and heart disease and every malady.
Which has been a recurring theme for me on this podcast. Reach out to your communities,
Right.
hang out with people.
Talk to your friends.
Right.
Talk to people who aren't your friends. And on that note, I believe the ideal life is a nonstop process of learning and growing. Thanks for learning and growing with us. Stay on your game, and we'll see you next time on Everybody's Podcast.